can tell you is tomorrow is very important. It's election day, and I hope all our kababayans and the community show up to make sure that we have representation at the table and that we will finally have a Filipino Canadian in Ottawa. And I want everyone to know that I'm so ready to serve. So please follow the road.
Can we get a round of applause for all these great candidates that have joined us tonight? Bonjour à tous, c'est un grand plaisir d'être ici avec vous ce soir, and welcome everybody to our campaign office here on the unceded territory of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh Nation. It is my job tonight to introduce to you a leader who, along with this team in 2015, put forward a vision for Canada where we would invest in the middle class, where we would create a country where every single person has a fair and real chance at success. And we have taken our good fiscal standing, and during the pandemic, we were able to take the cost of the pandemic and take that off of our small businesses. And at the same time, we made sure that every single Canadian was protected. We focused on health, and that focus worked. We have recovered in Canada 93%, and here in BC we are over 100%. We are leading the recovery here on the West Coast. But we need to do more than just end the pandemic. We have a vision in 2021 in this election campaign with a bold vision to have nation-building programs like childcare, like pharmacare, like a national housing strategy, and of course, a world-leading climate plan. And the person that's going to help us get there, who's going to lead the way, well, he really needs no introduction, but he is the member for Papineau. He is the leader of the Liberal Party of Canada, and with your help, ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau!
So good to see you guys tonight. Thank you, Terry, for those words, those leadership, and for gathering so many of my closest BC friends here tonight. Thank you very much, everyone. How about another huge round of applause for our amazing BC team? You know, it feels so good. I started today at home in Montreal, and I get to finish the day at home in BC. Thank you very much, everyone. It has been just an amazing campaign, and every time I've come out here, I've just met so many hardworking volunteers from every corner across the Lower Mainland, getting out there, sharing the messages, and making sure that people know there's a very clear choice in this election, and the Canadians are ready to move forward for everyone. Because we are absolutely at a crossroads right now. The decisions that this country takes in the coming weeks, in the coming month or two, will determine not just how we end this pandemic, but how we build back better for the future. And that's why Canadians get to have their say tomorrow. Because I know people are tired. We've had a really tough 18 months. But you know what we saw through those 18 months of the pandemic? We saw the very best of Canadians. We saw people stepping up for their communities, for their families, for their neighbors, stepping up to support frontline health workers, to support those people who kept going into work while the rest of us were hunkered down. And I got to see the very best of Canadians, as you all inspired me. Every time I came out my front door and stood in front of those cameras talking to you about the work we were doing together, about how we were going to get through this together, you inspired me, and we stepped up the way you've stepped up. We delivered the CERB to keep families safe while they hunkered down. We delivered the wage subsidy and the rent subsidy. Simple promise to Canadians that we would have your backs, and that's exactly what we did together. And now we can feel it. There's a new day dawning in this country, an opportunity to take the lessons we learned from each other about being there for each other, about building a stronger future, and apply them not just to ending this pandemic, but to how we step up on other crises other than COVID. How we step on the crisis that we're facing in housing, the crisis of reconciliation, the crisis of affordability, the crisis of climate change. These are things we now get to apply the same energy, the same intensity we show as Canadians. And that's what this election is about. Because I know you are all excited about the next steps in our country's journey. But before we can take those steps, we need to end this pandemic for good. And that, my friends, happens with vaccines. La seule façon d'en finir avec cette pandémie pour de bon, c'est les vaccinations. And that's why we've been absolutely unequivocal in our leadership, because Canadians have shown tremendous leadership on that. You did what you needed to do. You wore masks. You washed your hands 25 times a day. You hunkered down. We kept our distances. And when the vaccines arrived in large numbers, enough for everyone to get vaccinated, you went out and got vaccinated. Canadians have done the right things, knew that that was how we get through it, because that's what science says, that's what doctors say, that's what our public health officials, that's what your leaders said. That's what we knew gets us through this pandemic, and you did that. And now we have to keep pushing a little further. But I know all of you are eager to get back to the things that we love to do, the reasons why we were ready to hunker down and hold on so we could get to that brighter tomorrow, so we could get through this pandemic. And the fact that close to 80% of Canadians have done that means that we're going to be able to get back to more of the things we love, like traveling, like going across the country to see your family, or going south for a vacation. But as a government, we're going to make it very, very clear that you shouldn't be at risk, and your kids shouldn't be at risk when you do that, because you chose to do the right things. So within a couple of months, everyone who gets on a plane or a train needs to be fully vaccinated. And for public servants, need to be fully vaccinated. And we will foot the bill for all the provinces that are stepping up on vaccine passports so that you can go to restaurants, to bars, to gyms, to movie theaters, and feel safe. It seems so obvious, doesn't it? That we would stand up for your rights to get back to the things you love. That we'd make sure you have freedom to be able to feel safe and comfortable in going out with your kids who can't yet get vaccinated while we hang on for them. Except not everyone thinks that way. We need strong leadership to get through this. We're seeing, unfortunately, what happens when you don't have that strong leadership on science, on public health. Alberta, even though Albertans massively and overwhelmingly have gotten vaccinated, not nearly as much as in BC and in other parts of the country, but they did pretty well. But even that is not enough, because there wasn't that strong enough leadership putting them forward in a strong enough way to get vaccinated. We're supposed to lead by example. You're supposed to encourage people to do the right thing. Is candidates spreading disinformation and misinformation on vaccines? A candidate who wasn't fully vaccinated going in to visit seniors in a senior's home? That's not leadership. That's not how we get through this pandemic. We get through this pandemic by understanding and believing in the science and getting vaccinated. And the Liberal Party of Canada will always stand up for your rights and your defense and your freedoms as people who are doing the right things for each other. The fact is, it's not just about getting through this pandemic. It's not just about keeping our loved ones and our frontline workers safe and not being overwhelmed, although that's reason enough. But getting vaccinated is also the best way to ensure that not only do we avoid lockdowns in the coming months, but we make sure our economy comes back stronger than ever. Yeah. And the fact that Mr. O'Toole doesn't understand that shows that he actually doesn't have a plan for the economy. He also doesn't have a plan for $1 a day childcare. We know how important that is for kids. We know how important that is for families who are spending British Columbia. You guys were leaders. We were happy to sign with you first to make sure that within 5 years you get $10 a day childcare, and next year those fees will be cut in half. Not just about affordability for families, although that's huge. It's not just about giving kids the best start in school and in life, although that's huge as well. It's also about the economic growth that happens when women have the opportunity and the choice to get back into the workforce. It's an economic policy. And the proof of that is the fact that through this pandemic, suddenly the business community realized, oh my gosh, we really need childcare to help make sure people can be productive and kids go to school, go to childcare. There was an understanding while we were all on lockdown how important childcare is, and that's where we were finally able to move forward strongly. The Liberal Party has believed in childcare for many years. We signed deals with the provinces over the past years, but stepping up on full $10 a day childcare, that took leadership, conviction, and commitment, and that's what we've done. And I can't come to the Lower Mainland without talking about the housing crisis. And you know, like I know, that any politician promising to fix the housing crisis in a snap of the fingers with one single policy is not telling you the truth. The housing situation is complex and requires a multifaceted approach, which is why we are the party that put forward the strongest housing policy to help counter this housing crisis. First, by helping young families save tens of thousands of dollars faster, including with $30,000 worth of support from the government to be able to put down their first down payment. We've moving $4 billion to the municipalities so they can create 1.4 million new homes across the country over the coming years. And we're also, this is important here in the Lower Mainland, going to stand up for people, for home buyers' rights, to make sure that blind bidding, to make sure that foreign investors who are buying places but not living in them, to make sure that all the predatory practices that cause such challenges are no longer allowed, because we're standing up for your rights. That's what a good housing plan does. But to contrast, a bad housing plan is one like Mr. O'Toole is putting forward that focuses on giving $500 million in tax breaks to the wealthiest landlords to help them sell their buildings. How does that help you buy a new home? How does that help anyone afford their rent? It doesn't. Again, they don't understand how to grow the economy properly. And the clearest and strongest example of that, they don't understand still in 2021 that you don't have a plan for the economy if you don't have have a plan to fight climate change. And this is an important one, I know, for British Columbians, but it's important for Canadians from coast to coast to coast, and as is so often the case, BC has led on this. Over the past 6 years, we brought in a price on pollution right across the country, largely modeled on BC's approach that has, yes, we had to fight over the heads of a number of Conservative premiers who took us all the way to the Supreme Court because they didn't want to do it, but we managed to win and make sure that nowhere in this country is it free to pollute anymore. Protecting our lands and our oceans. When we took office, Mr. Harper had managed to protect only 1% of our coastal areas and oceans. We are now at 14% protected, on our way to 30% protected. I know that's important here in BC. We're moving forward on banning single-use plastics and continuing to lead on increasing recycling and making sure that we're reducing plastic waste. We're continuing to lead around the world, even as we transform our energy grid to be net zero, and make sure that 100% of cars bought in 2035 and beyond are zero-emission vehicles. These are the things we're doing. We're also putting an absolute cap on oil sands emissions and decreasing them until we reach net zero. This environmental plan that we have put forward as a Liberal Party has been recognized as the strongest, most ambitious, most concrete environmental plan of any political party out there, including the Greens and the NDP. And not just by us, although we're fairly convinced, particularly Jonathan, who is very, very heavy in designing it. But Terry Beach is always there to push us even harder. But Andrew Weaver, the former leader of the Green Party of BC and a climate scientist of international renown, came out and endorsed our plan as the best plan to fight climate change. Mark Jaccard of SFU, one of the country's top climate economists, gave us an 8 out of 10, gave the NDP a 2 out of 10 for their plan. But the Conservatives, it's not even that they lack ambition to move forward fast enough. They actually want to bring us backwards on climate. They want to lower Canada's targets back to where they were in Stephen Harper's day, even though we are now well on track to surpassing them and to going even further, even faster. I know Canadians and British Columbians specifically don't want to go backwards on the fight against climate change, because you know it's not only our kids and grandkids' futures at stake. It's not only the clean air we breathe and the fresh water we drink. It's also about the good jobs and careers we need to keep our economy growing and competitive into the future. That's what the It often comes up in an election campaign where they say, oh, I really don't want a Conservative government. I really have to try and stop a Conservative government. And the best way to do that, the only way to do that, is to vote Liberal for a Liberal government. And vote for the very best progressive government that Canada has ever had by voting Liberal. And I can tell you that everywhere across BC, everywhere across the country, that Liberal candidate on your ballot will fight hard for the most ambitious plan to fight climate change Canada has ever seen. Will fight hard to keep assault weapons banned when Mr. O'Toole wants to bring them back. We'll stand unequivocally for a woman's right to choose. We'll continue to stand up for the partnership with Indigenous peoples as we move forward on the path of reconciliation. We'll continue to fight for housing, continue to fight for childcare. We'll embody those values that progressives care about from coast to coast to coast. That is what you get when you vote for the Liberal Party. We get a clear choice right now. Either we move back, as Erin O'Toole wants to take Canada back, or we choose to move forward for everyone. And I know that all of you who are out here at night, still engaged, and late in the evening, while the rest of Canada is asleep, you are still going, still making sure that you are there to spread this message, so Canadians make the right choice. So get out there tomorrow. Make sure you're mobilizing, you're getting people to the polls, you're sharing this message that the best option to stop the Conservatives and the best progressive government this country has ever seen is to go out and vote Liberal. Merci.